Hey Science2 kiddos, I'm going to use this video to walk you through our investigating the drinking bird activity. So even if you have the drinking bird toy, great. You can use this as like a demo video to just follow along and answer the questions. If you don't have the drinking bird, then use this, watch what happens, and you can use this video to answer the questions. If you are doing the experiment, what you need is your drinking bird toy, a mug that is about as tall as the legs, a bowl with ice in it, some tissues for drying things off, and a water source. It could be a sink or a faucet or something like that. Again, if you don't have the drinking bird toy, then you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. So let's take a look. This is the drinking bird toy. It comes in two pieces. There's the legs that are a stand and then the actual body itself. Notice that there's sort of a head piece, a bottom, and this very colorful fluid on the inside of it. And so we're actually going to keep these separate for now. We're just going to mess around with this body piece and then we'll put it together at the very end. So the first experiment that you're going to do, or what I want you to observe, is, so notice right now the fluid's mostly sitting on the bottom. But watch what happens if I cup the bottom with my hand and warm it up. Notice that the fluid is flowing to the top, to the head portion. And when I let go, it stays up there. It doesn't just fall down on its own. In fact, the only way to get it to go back down to the bottom is to tilt it. And so that will help you answer the first two questions right there. So the first question is, what happens when the bottom bulb is cupped and warmed up using body heat? There you go, you can see it one more time. And then the next question is, what happens then when you tilt this back and forth a few times? Again, I gotta wait for the liquid to calm down a bit here, but you should notice that it all flows back, or mostly flows back down to the bottom once you've tilted it over a few times. Okay, so now I'm going to reset that, get the fluid back up into the top. This is for the third question. So now that all the fluid is up at the top, now let's see if I can get it to flow back down without having to tilt it. And so what I'm going to do is actually grip the top portion and warm it up with my hand. And you should notice that the fluid is flowing back down as I warm up the head portion. And there you go, all the fluid is now back down on the bottom, and all I did was warmed up the head portion using my body heat from my hand. So clearly there's a trend here in terms of how the fluid behaves when it is warmed up, right? What happens when you warm up the bulb that the fluid is in? So that's the observation you need to make. I think that's the fourth question, is what can we conclude about the movement of the fluid when you warm up the bulb or portion that it's in? So go ahead and answer that. Okay, now let's do an alternative method. Next, what's going to happen is we are going to wet the felt fabric here on the head. You'll notice the head is made out of sort of a spongy material. I'm just going to use some water and a pipette here, but you can use a spoon or a squirt bottle or something like that. But notice the minute I got a little bit of water on the head, the liquid rose back up. So there's a question about that. There's the liquid rising. And all I did was put a little bit of water on that head portion where that fabric is. And what that's causing is evaporative cooling. So it's making it cold in the upper portion right there. So it's very cold up there, and the liquid is rising towards it. Okay, now we're going to use tissues to dry off that top portion as best we can. We won't be able to get it perfectly dry, but we just want to reduce the amount of evaporative cooling happening at the top, because now I want to go in reverse. So notice, even though I've kind of dried off the top portion, the liquid is still risen up through the tube, right? It's all the way up into the head there. So now watch what happens when I dip the bottom bulb into this bowl of ice. So this is ice and ice water. Notice the fluid flowed, all the fluid flowed down to the bottom. So now I've made it very cold on the bottom there, and all the fluid flowed downwards towards the bottom. So once again, you can answer that next question about how the liquid behaves for cold. What happens when we make cold the bulb that is not, where the fluid is not present, right? So what's the behavior of it? Again, let me add some ice water to the top portion again and watch what happens. versus again if I put the bottom into the ice water again. So there's a clear behavior there in terms of what the fluid does. Okay, and then people who have the toy, you're going to be setting it up next to the water. So filling up the mug. Again, you want to get a glass or mug that is about as equal height as the legs. Fill it up to the brim, and you get the drinking bird started by just tilting it over, dipping its head in the water, and sometimes it helps to really kind of dunk it at the start. And let it run. And mine might still be a little cold on the bottom here, so I'm going to help it out in that regard. There we go. And then that's why it's called the drinking bird, because you'll see it kind of slowly tilts over and takes a drink periodically. And so the last question is for you to just, based on what you know and what we observed in this little experiment, how does this work? And again, there's no right or wrong answers here. You're going to be reading about it in detail tonight. So I just want to know, what are your thoughts? How do you think this little toy works and maintains this perpetual motion of drinking, even though mine's slowed down here? Okay, hope this was helpful. Thanks.